As a member, you'll receive the Argonaut, an award-winning publication that has provided in-depth historical accounts for over 30 years. And the Panorama, a quarterly newsletter covering ongoing activities and historical presentations. Go to sfhistory.org and discover the San Francisco Historical Society, giving our history a great future. Become a member today.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ-FM in HD1 San Francisco, on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Good morning, Area!
It's time to wake up. It's 5, and we're live.
Oh, is this thing on? I don't care. I want him to hear.
This is the Pregame Show, your early morning shot of sports on 95.7 The Game.
Come on!
We back. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Pregame Show. Joe Spadoni. You got me for the next hour right here on 95.7 The Game, your home for Golden State Warriors basketball, as basketball season's upon us, football season. Well, let's just say it's the biggest game of the year so far for the San Francisco 49ers. They're trying to exact some sort of revenge on the, I don't want to say hated, Kansas City Chiefs, because I'm a little down on Niners fans right now. I'm not going to lie. This team, Kansas City, has prevented you not once, but twice from winning a Super Bowl. You had a lead on them not once, but twice in the fourth quarter of both of those Super Bowls. Where's the hate? Where's the anger? Where's just the frustration? I'm hearing way too many Niners fans like, oh, yeah, Mahomes, he's a nice guy. Oh, yeah, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. Oh, Andy Reid, he's like Santa Claus. What was it? This is football. Where's the anger? Where's the animosity? This team doesn't think anything of you. They haven't lost to you in the Kyle Shanahan era. They're used to just beating your ass every single time. And you're just going to be like, yeah, we don't really hate Mahomes, though. Yeah, he's fine. He's a nice guy. Please. I need to hear from the Niner fans today. I'm a little down on you guys right now. I'm not going to lie. 888-957-9570. I'm calling you out. It's been way too much of just holding hands. Yeah, we might win this game, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world. To hell with that. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And you got to beat Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift. All of them. All right? So 888-957-9570. How big of a game is this for you, 49ers fans? The faithful. Oh, ye of little faithful when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. God. I've been screening so many calls yesterday. Whether it was 49ers and it was talking about, yeah, but I don't really hate Patrick Mahomes. You know, Russell Wilson, I didn't stand him. Pete Carroll, Sean McVay. Well, I get it. Those are divisional opponents, but you've owned them. See, I look at it the opposite. You own the Rams. You've owned the Seahawks as of late. There's no animosity there. Please. But the Chiefs, they got your number. You can't beat them. They have a psychological and physical edge over you. Their defense punked Kyle Shanahan's offense last year when it mattered most. Steve Spagnuolo set the right blitz packages, slot corner, L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, the sticky man coverage, as we called it. It was a problem for the likes of Deebo Samuel, for the likes of Brandon Ayuk. Brock Purdy was often dumbfounded. So what's it going to look like this time around? This Chiefs team, it's not the same as last year. No Rashee Rice. No Hollywood Brown. And obviously Hollywood Brown was not part of the team last year, but he's out for the year nonetheless with a chest injury. They got Travis Kelce, but no Isaiah Pacheco. They got Kareem Hunt. This is a game where realistically you should be able to win. And maybe should is the wrong word. Because again, should implies that, you're the better team. I don't know if they're the better team. They could win this game. Absolutely. If they play complementary football. But we haven't seen that team play complementary football all season long. Whether it's the offensive, production, whether it's the defensive production, whether it's special teams, all three phases need to be in sync to win this game. Because I know what the Andy Reid-led Chiefs are going to look like coming out of a bye. They're going to be buttoned up. They're going to be ready to go. They got the greatest quarterback in all the NFL on their team. They have one of the greatest tight ends in all of the history of the National Football League on their teams. And again, Andy Reid, one of the greatest head coaches in all league. Hell, Steve Spagnuolo, one of the great defensive coordinators of all time. So they have all time after all time after all time. That being said, they've been eking by a lot of their wins. And I'm not saying it's a Fugazi 5-0 like Mike Florio and others might try to say for the Kansas City Chiefs. No. There's nothing Fugazi about the Kansas City Chiefs being undefeated. They're the Chiefs. They win ugly, and they could blow you out. It's been more so ugly this year, but that's what they do. They did it in the playoffs, and they did it in the Super Bowl. Will they do it this Sunday at Levi's Stadium? 888-957-9570. Can't wait to hear from you as the show goes on. But first, I did want to replay this interview, and it was a tremendous one because Willard and Dibbs were broadcasting live yesterday from Pleasanton at the Madden compound where John Madden and his family would spend their days watching football and hanging out. And obviously John Madden, not only a legend in the sport of football, a legend here in the Bay Area because of what he meant to Oakland Raider football, what he meant to just football fans in general, whether it was calling 49er football games, whether it was calling the biggest games in the Super Bowl with the Niners, amongst other teams, whether it was video games of being just a domineering figure in that medium. Well, Steve Mariucci, former 49ers head coach and obviously NFL Network analyst, joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday to discuss the life and legacy of one John Madden. And obviously, they were also joined by Stan Bunger, who's obviously a KCBS legend, San Francisco State legend. Shout out Becca Major as well, just like me. Broadcasting and electronic communications. And Stan Bunger obviously wrote the book Mornings with Madden, My Radio Life with an American Legend. Urge all of you to check that out wherever you can find a book. They still got bookstores these days. Barnes & Noble, I think there's still one of those in Emeryville. If not, Amazon. You're good. But Steve Mariucci joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday, courtesy of the River Islands guest line. Take it away, Mark.
It's good to be over here. This is going to be a lot of fun tonight.
This is going to be a lot of fun. What are you looking forward to most?
I don't know. I just seeing the family, looking around this museum. Okay, that's what this is, right? And talking about John Madden. I'm sure we're going to have some laughs.
No doubt. And when you think about John Madden, the first time that you encountered John Madden or your history with John Madden, because everybody is intertwined with John in football and in the Bay Area, actually. So is there a moment where you remember meeting him or being touched by him that you want to share?
Well, I've obviously our first exposure to him was listening. Well, I as a coach, I knew of him as a great coach.
Sure,
okay,
sure.
But then for so many years, he was so good in the booth. And I've watched 8 bazillion football games as a kid growing up with my mom and dad, and he became everybody's favorite in the booth. And so when I started coaching, sooner or later I knew I was going to have John Madden do one of our games. And the biggest memory that the thing that puts a smile on my face is when he came out to Green Bay and I was coaching the Niners, because as an assistant, you don't get to talk to John Madden. You got to be the head coach, right? Or you got to be Reggie White or Brett Favre or the star, right? The assistants never get to even shake his hand. So when I was the head coach of the Niners, we played at Green Bay, and that's where I grew up, back there. I'm not a cheesehead, but pretty darn close. I grew up in Iron Mountain, right on the border of Wisconsin, but I grew up a Packer fan. And my family came down and this and that, and I had a lot of people come. But John and I first really met then, and I was the head coach, and we had the production meeting. Usually you do it in the green room or in a room in the hotel. Well, we did it on this bus, and it became a little bit different kind of a production meeting, because it was like, hey, Mooch, why don't you show me around town here? I go, come on, let's go. So we're talking a little bit about the game, but more about, okay, let's turn over here. There's Mike Holmgren's house. Okay, that's where. Come on, show me where Favre lives. We tried the bus over there. There's where Brett Favre lived. And come on to my cul-de-sac. So we drove up the cul-de-sac where I lived, and I'm going, okay, so that's my house on the end of the cul-de-sac right there. And this is Juccola's house, and this is Safransky's, and that's the Olsons, and that's where I lived right there. And all of a sudden, 8 bazillion kids come running out, because now there's the Madden's bus on the cul-de-sac where the kids play street hockey, and the kids are going, hey Madden, and you've seen that before. And so that was our first encounter of a production meeting, was driving around Green Bay's neighborhoods and just fending off all the kids. It was a lot of fun. Then the next time it happened, well, we did it again, but I said, next time we do this, I got to have my mom bring some pasties down. Some, what pasties are?
Let our listeners know.
Well, come on. So back in Michigan, back in the mines, Cornish pasties, instead of a sandwich, we make bologna sandwiches now. Pasties have meat and potatoes and carrots, and it's a pastry, and it's awesome, and it's really good for you. And they would bring those down in their lunch bucket down in the mines, okay? It was very good eating. Anyway, so my mom brought a bunch of pasties down for everybody on the bus, and it was like a feast, and it was like, make sure you have enough ketchup. And so it became kind of a thing that we would ride around in his bus and have the production meeting eating pasties, looking around town.
I've never heard of a progressive production meeting. Did he do this with other coaches, or was this just a you thing?
No, I don't know what he did with other coaches, but I know he didn't get pasties from any other coach, because my mom brought him down.
So good. Oh, that's awesome. The Madden Cruiser. I mean, it was just like that whole thing in and of itself became so iconic. I ran into it one time as a kid out on Highway 5. We stopped at Harris Ranch, and there was the Madden Cruiser in the parking lot, and he was leaving Harris Ranch, and he's walking through the parking lot. It just reminded me of that, because you said the way the kids, he's like the Pied Piper, like everybody just running toward the guy.
Well, it's not like everybody had a bus, and so he they knew who it was, and that's one of my regrets. And I've known John now a long time, and I rode on the bus, and all of that. But I never had a chance to ride like across the country on that bus and stop at all those diners and all those small town restaurants and cafes and that would have been awesome. I would have slept on the floor just to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And just the idea of John at that time, and a lot of our listeners, and I'm looking at our director of sports, Lucas, who's barely in his early 30s and probably not old enough to remember those times. But
does he know he had a bus?
I don't even know if he, at the time it was like, it was Madden and Summerall, and John didn't fly, and so he traveled on the bus. But when John Madden and Pat Summerall were calling your game as a coach, you had to feel a little bit of an extra import in a regular season game, more so than now, where, you get your A crew for Fox, or you get your A crew this and that, and Sunday and Thursday and Monday. There's so much football, but the Madden Summerall vibe as a coach, that had to give you a little extra feel.
Yes, and when you had them, you knew it was a big game, right? They were assigned the big games, and so it was fun in the product. They were different every network and their personnel are different when they interview you in a production meeting about the game and about who's hurt and about this and about that guy, and and of course John had his own style. Pat Summerall was awesome, but you just knew how. A couple things. You knew how intelligent John was by the questions he asked you, but you knew that he was prepared, that he watched a lot of film, but you also knew that he was there for having some fun and getting to know you and getting to know the person, and that's where he was so good. Is he gave a darn about people and their background and their families and all of that, all of those things.
The Terrell Owens catch game. He did that game. Do you remember any specific interactions in the bigger games that he did that you were a part of? Was it always before the game? Was there ever anything after the game?
I never saw him after the game. I think when he got done with the booth, he probably tried to hightail it out of there.
Yeah, right.
And then we were in the locker room, and then going to the press conferences. Never really saw him. Would see him before the game because he'd always come to practice. He'd come with his tennis shoes on, his khaki pants, and that big shirt hanging out. And then he would be watching practice and asking you questions about this guy and that guy and whatnot. He always. I mean, we do those production meetings on Zoom right now, and sometimes the guys watch practice, sometimes they don't. But he was very thorough. He always liked going to practice. Of course, he was on the road for 6 months.
Yeah,
he had time to go to practice.
Steve Mariucci with us here on Willard and Dibbs, and we're at the Madden compound. I was thinking about this game this weekend. Madden would be doing this if he were still broadcasting. This
Which game you talking about?
Well, the Niners and Chiefs coming up this weekend. And we were talking earlier about what we perceive, at least, as a little bit of a mental disadvantage that the Niners are trying to overcome because the Chiefs have had their number. Is that something that people just make up? Have you ever experienced that as a coach where you felt like your team kind of had something else that they needed to get over because they've struggled against a certain opponent?
Yeah, when I was an assistant in Green Bay, coaching the quarterbacks, I had Brett Favre was there, and Brett was one of John's favorite guys. We would always, we a couple times we played in the playoffs, a couple times on Thanksgiving, and a couple times just down there. 6 times in a row we played the Cowboys down in Dallas. It was weird scheduling, okay? Coincidental, but it was, and they beat us. They just kept beating us, and we were young. And in 1995, in fact, the last time the Dallas Cowboys were in the NFC Championship game with Michael Irvin, the triplets, Irvin, Aikman, and Emmitt Smith. Deion Sanders played wide receiver in that game. So I was coaching on the Packers, right? And John Madden's doing the game, of course. And, one of our coaches got run over. Gil Haskell hit his head on the side, went into a coma, had to stay in Dallas for a while. But, it was one of those, we have to get over this hurdle or we're never going to get anywhere. And then the next year, the teams met up and finally the Packers beat the Cowboys. But it was one of those things where it's like, are we ever going to beat these guys?
Is that more of a fan creation, or is that something that actually matriculates into the locker room and the coaches and the players? Because we're kind of going through it here as broadcasters and fans with this whole Chiefs thing.
It depends on which guys you're talking to, because there's a lot of new guys that didn't experience all those losses or those Super Bowl losses, right? There's some new kids that just really don't care about that, right? And but the coaches that were there, or the players that were there, you're talking about different quarterbacks and different, a lot of different supporting cast here. So I suppose they're aware of it, but I don't know if they let it haunt them.
How do you see this matchup right now, based on its recent history?
Well, yeah. Forget the recent history, really. This is a new game, new teams, basically. Yeah, they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and Andy was one of the coaches that was coaching with us in Green Bay. Yeah. He and I shared an office because we ran out of office space, so they shoved us in the same little room. Anyway, the Packers are the 49ers are the best 3-3 team that this league's ever seen, right? I mean, they're very good. They're very talented. And when they have their guys healthy, and I don't know if Christian McCaffrey's coming back or when, who knows, right? They are still very, very good. and very, very physical. So this game is going to be a important one. This game is going to be one that would get them over the hump or the hurdle, that mental hurdle you're talking about. Deebo Samuels is he's kind of like a twin to Christian McCaffrey. They both can do everything, right? They can play receiver, slot, running back, and return kicks if need be, whatever that is. And when they're both on the field at the same time, it's like, how do you match up, But with Kittle and Jawan Jennings and Ayuk and Jordan Mason, how's he feeling? Have you heard today?
Still in the blue jersey, so he's trending in the right direction.
Trending, and Brock Purdy is very, very good. So this ought to be a good game, and the Chiefs are for real. I love watching Patrick Mahomes play. He's the magic man. I mean, he's as special as we've ever seen. I'm sure John would really love him.
Yeah, and doing it this year without really much of a run game and without any real wide receiver. He's doing it with a lot of tight ends and doing it
win differently.
Yeah, win differently. And I think about Kyle Shanahan and as kind of a parallel to your time with the Niners because you were really successful, but you didn't quite get over the hump. And Kyle so far has been really successful and hasn't gotten over the hump. And what is it like as a coach when you're knocking on that door, but you're not able to really just push through it?
Trust me, you'd rather be that coach or that team that's knocking on the door every year than a team that is awful and doesn't have that kind of pressure.
Can't find the door.
So he's right there. This team is right there. It's about finishing games, right? Having a good fourth quarter, putting a good drive together. They're so darn close, and if they can stay healthy, like I said earlier, they're going to be right there again.
Do you see a parallel? I think we forget that you had spent some time on the same staff with Andy Reid. In this town, Kyle now gets compared a lot to Andy in Philly. In other words, like, you're really good, you're knocking on the door a lot, but frustration boils because you can't get that last one. No one thinks about that with Andy anymore because now he's with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and they're the big dogs. Do you see parallels to Andy in Philly and Kyle now?
I hope not, because Andy got let go in Philly, and then he had to resurface someplace else. I can't imagine Kyle getting let go. So I hope that's just, maybe that sounds like there's some similarities there right now, but Kyle's still a good young coach, and he's got a lot more wins coming up.
Yeah, and the track record, it would be the thing, and hopefully he doesn't have to wait as long as Andy to get his Super Bowl, because that would be another 6 years here for Kyle in San Francisco before going elsewhere. And when you watch the Niners play, it seems to me that they play differently than a lot of other teams with the use of the fullback, and they love their tight end and the rest of it. What do you make of the Niners and the way they go about their offense?
It's old school. It's old school football. And you mentioned the use of a fullback. Half the teams don't have a fullback.
Right.
And so the fullback is a dinosaur. They don't use them in colleges either anymore. They're always in shotgun and spread and 3 and 4 wide, sometimes more. The fullback is like, who? What? And so I love the teams that establish the ground game, and I've said this before though. The tight end position now, which is extremely underpaid, is maybe, other than quarterback, maybe the most difficult position or more demanding position in football, because they're having to teach these guys to put their hand on the ground and block right next to a tackle in line, and then play it in the slot, and then play receiver, and then come on in and play you or fullback, and all those protections and all those routes and all the different things that they're having. I don't know how they practice or meet with these tight ends. They're doing so many things. They're replacing that fullback that the team doesn't have. And so the Niners have a great one in Kittle, and of course Travis Kelce is the other great one, and there's a handful of them right now, and they're extremely underpaid compared to the wide receivers in this league.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. Steve Mariucci joining us on Willard and Dibs, and I was going to compare it to the wide receiver. It sounds like you're saying that the wide receiver position is overpaid.
Did I say that?
Well, that's what I said.
They got guys making $35 million a year, and then they'll catch 4 balls in a game, and that kind of thing, and they hardly block. You got to have great ones, absolutely. But what I'm saying is that the tight end is a little bit underappreciated, And then what we have, we've felt that way with running backs too. Why do you need to draft one in the first round when you get all these other kids that are 5th, 6th, 7th round playing very well, right, making peanuts, and so maybe you don't need to draft a running back that early unless there's a great one there. But the tight end position is becoming, if you can get one, and I had Tony Gonzalez at Cal, and then of course he went over to Kansas City and Atlanta, and now is in the Hall of Fame. Those kinds of guys, man, if they can block and if they can play receiver, it's a matchup nightmare. What do you do? If you were the defensive coordinator, how do you cover a guy like that? With a linebacker, not fast enough. With a corner, not big enough. A safety, not fast enough. I don't know. Double them. It's a problem.
It's funny you say that because I was watching tape from the New Orleans game with Kansas City, and they had Travis Kelce actually receive the snap out of the pistol and run the...
Well, he was a quarterback, in high school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It looked like it because he ran the read option with Xavier Worthy, and Mahomes is behind him, and so Andy's got all kinds of toys.
He lets... Andy's nuts, and he lets his guys... He was really close with John. They were on the competition committee together and this and that, but... he lets his players, because when you're good, you can kind of do whatever you want, but he lets his players suggest new little wrinkles and new plays and new fun things, right? And I'm not kidding. When I go to there and watch them practice, they're practicing that stuff, and they're laughing and they're having fun and they're throwing underhand, and they got a bag of tricks, man. And you can be assured that one of them's coming out in the first half against the Niners.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. That kind of comes with the resume they have, right? You can afford to play it loose and try some things, and people won't criticize you. And that feels like that's present in this matchup because the Niners have all this angst with the way it's gone with these two teams.
I know it. The other team that's starting to play like the Chiefs on offense are the Detroit Lions. They're starting to do all that. They're very good. They can run and throw. And then now they're mixing in the goofy stuff, the fun stuff, the laterals, all that different thing. And fans love it, players love it. And even if it doesn't work once in a while, you still got that little, we're just going to keep doing this stuff.
And how important is that inside the locker room to have a team that knows that you might pull some of that out? And we talked about last year Kansas City doing the ring around the rosy where they break the huddle and they're all running in circles.
Yep.
Does that stuff... even if the play doesn't work, does that help your overall culture knowing that, a player can raise his hand and say, hey, coach, let's try this?
Now, don't think that every time there's a suggestion, the coach runs the play, okay?
Right.
But, can you imagine the defense standing there watching the offense practice that in the indoor facility? Okay, let's get this ring around the rosy, right, guys? But they give it some importance.
You mentioned earlier that for the 49ers, it's about finishing. It's about that fourth quarter. What do you see? Is there an issue there, or is it circumstance? What do you see with their, if there are even those fourth quarter struggles?
Yeah. So as a coach, and you just shake your head and just kind of brainstorm as to what it could be. Okay, so we know we have these losses that we failed in the fourth quarter. Whether it was Kyle back in Atlanta in the Super Bowl or wherever the big games are, you didn't hang on to a lead, okay? So then you start going, all right, we're going to do a research on this, and we're going to try to find out what it is. Is it a fumble here? Is it a penalty there? Is it a defense giving up a big play? Is it our conditioning?
The great Steve Mariucci. I had to cut him off there a little bit because we're up against it, but you can find the rest of that interview on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Also download the Odyssey app. That is free. We're going to take a quick break. Come on back. Reaction to that interview and previewing more 49ers Chiefs on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
Golden State Racing in Pleasanton, the home of live horse racing in Northern California, Friday through Sunday, October 19th through December 15th. Join us opening day for an Oktoberfest and the Bart Heller Stakes race worth $75,000. Book a box seat, plan a party at the Trackside Terrace, or dine at the Sky Lounge for the best view of the races. See horse racing the way it was meant to be seen. Real dirt.
Go to sfhistory.org and discover the San Francisco Historical Society, giving our history a great future. Become a member today.
Hey, Spadoni, shut up!
Bay Area, it's Kevon Looney. You're listening to the pregame show with Joe Spadoni on 95.7 The Game.
Shout out my guy, Kevon Looney. Looking svelte these days, too. Kevon lost some weight, looking fit, looking strong, looking healthy. Got a lot of wear and tear on that body. Going to be very interested to see how Kevon Looney looks this season. He said he added the three-point shot to his repertoire, wants to keep using that more and more. We'll see. We shall see. But basketball season, not quite here yet. So we're talking a lot of 49ers, Chiefs, rightfully so. We do have Warriors-Lakers preseason action tomorrow night at Chase Center. So be there or be square. Should be a lot of fun. You'll see all the stars. It's the nice part about those kind of dress rehearsal games. So you'll see all the big stars. You'll see Steph. You'll see LeBron. You'll see AD. Are we going to get Bronny Chance? I think we were getting Bronny Chance at Summer League this past summer, but I don't think we got any at, was he at the Cali Classic? Was Bronny there? I don't recall. I was hanging out with Bonte and Guru at the Cali Classic over the summer. I think we maybe were having a couple. I don't remember. Anyways, it's also 5:34 a.m. on the pregame show. You know what? My head's a little foggy. That's okay. Kind of like outside. That fall crisp air. You feel that? You smell it? It feels good. And it feels like football. And it feels like basketball. And it feels like hockey. It feels like college football. This is the best time of year for sports, especially heading into November when you get all of it happening at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Never saw the movie, heard good things. But as it pertains to the 49ers and Chiefs, two first-place teams going head-to-head, I'm not here to try to turn this into a rivalry and try to conjure up something that maybe it just isn't there. And it's not a rivalry yet because the 49ers have yet to win in the Kyle Shanahan era against the Kansas City Chiefs, specifically against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. They just can't beat them right now. There is a mental hurdle that they have to clear this Sunday. Now, does that mean they have to beat them this Sunday to beat them in another Super Bowl, potentially? Not necessarily, but I do think it would go a long way in the psyche and not so much healing, because, listen, I don't want to get too deep here because trauma and all that sort of stuff, there's some real life issues that people have right now. We're talking about sports, but these are jobs too. These are, what people are going through on a daily basis, trying to overcome something in any work capacity can be mentally taxing. And I got to imagine for Kyle Shanahan, for George Kittle, for Deebo Samuel, for anyone that was on that first Super Bowl squad in Miami that they lost, for all those guys, it's got to be even more so taxing to just know that that was the team that prevented you from winning not one, but two Super Bowls. Man, maybe what could have been? Maybe Kyle Shanahan is the next Hall of Fame head coach, and it's not Andy Reid. And Andy Reid was going to be just the guy that never won one. He was another Marty Schottenheimer. And now we're looking at it, Kyle Shanahan. Is he the next Philadelphia version of Andy Reid? You're listening to it with Steve Mariucci the last segment when he joined Willard and Dibbs. There's some parallels there, absolutely, when it comes to Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid when he was in Philadelphia. Hell, Andy Reid made to 4 consecutive NFC Championship games, went to a Super Bowl, lost in the fourth quarter against one of the greatest teams of all time. Sound familiar? It's because it kind of is. What happened to Shanahan? Went to a plethora of NFC Championships, got to another Super Bowl, lost to one of the greatest teams of all time. Them the breaks. It sucks. It happens. The 49ers did that to some teams too, if we might recall. Cincinnati Bengals on line one, not once but twice. Just had their number. Those are very close games too. Boomer Esiason. Steve Weish. Is it Sam Weish? Steve Weish is NFL number. I always get those two confused. Sam Weish, right? Yes. Thank you. I do love those classic old Bengals helmets, though. It was just the orange and it has the black Bengals on the side. Those are sweet. Although, I'm a sucker for the new ones, too. The whiteout, where they got the white stripes. Those are pretty sick. I'm a sucker for a good jersey. I am. In NFL, they know what they're doing. They're just going back to the 90s and just sticking with that. Like you saw with the Denver Broncos. You saw with the Seattle Seahawks. Just do that. That's what everyone wants. The throwbacks are just so clean. They really are. What are the Niners going to be wearing this Sunday? Are they wearing any throwbacks? What are they doing? I don't think it's going to be 100 degrees. What's the weather looking like? Hopefully it's good. All right, we got to make sure we got Santa Clara weather. All good. Sunday, 84 degrees, partly cloudy. It's fine. Perfect. Chilling. That's football weather right there. And thankfully, this is at home and not in Kansas City. And the last time they went to Kansas City to play, was that when Jimmy Garoppolo, I want to say that's when he tore his ACL. God, feels like forever ago because it kind of was. Was that 6 years ago? Damn. Time flies. It does. Is this going to be the game? I got a feeling. I don't know why. I think the Niners win this week. I keep coming back to it. I feel like it's a perfect storm for them. I haven't been impressed by the Kansas City Chiefs offensively. The 49ers offensively, although at times get a little sidetracked, they've been pretty consistent overall. Defensively, that's where this game is going to be won. Can you shut down Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, P. Ryan, whoever the hell is running the ball for Kansas City? Can you shut that down and force Patrick Mahomes to be a pocket quarterback? Very good arm. He's very good. But the depth is lacking on that Kansas City Chiefs receiving core. Who's their number one? Is it Juju Smith-Schuster? Is he the number one? I know he had a breakout game, but that's tough. Travis Kelce hasn't been that impressive, but maybe they can exploit something there. Remember, they were handling Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl up until Dre Greenlaw got hurt, out for the game, torn Achilles, and then he just dominated. Him and Mahomes, that tandem just dominated. So much so that I thought the game was going to be ended in regulation. I thought he was going to score a touchdown there at the end. I was like, oh my God, this game is about to be over. They held him out, kicked the field goal, tied it up. But it was pretty wild. That entire, end of the game, to watch him dominate the way he did after pushing and shoving Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. Remember that? The Niners had the Chiefs in shambles early on there. Their future Hall of Fame tight end was yelling at the future Hall of Fame head coach, just having an absolute temper tantrum on the sidelines where he bumps chests with him, knocks him back, and then everything's okay because they end up winning the game. And then it is what it is. Rest is history. We're going to take a quick break. Come on back. One more segment. 888-957-9570 is the number. The matchup that you're circling in this game, is it Travis Kelce against this 49ers secondary? Is it the running game of the Kansas City Chiefs against the defensive front of the 49ers? Is it Brock Purdy against that elite Chiefs secondary, getting out of pressure from the likes of George Karlaftis and Chris Jones? What are you circling here on this game, 49ers fans? 888-957-9570 is the number. As the pregame show, Joe Spadoni rolls on 95.7 The Game.
Low testosterone forcing you to ride the bench? Get back in the game, in the gym, or in the bedroom with Balance Medical Solutions.
Get in there.
Get into pole position. Go deep in the end zone.
Touchdown.
Knock one out of the park. With our support, you'll be making easy layups and scoring all the time. Ready for a hole-in-one? Or maybe a hat trick?
Oh, yeah.
Beat back low testosterone.
Morning, I'm Margie Schaefer.
And I'm Eric Thomas. First up, a check on KCBS traffic with Kim Wonderly.
We're always live and local on your smart speaker.
Yeah, traffic's been relatively well behaved, but we're starting to see some of these commutes fill in.
Tell your smart speaker to play KCBS Radio.
Bay Area, it's Brandon Pajemski. You're listening to the pregame show with Joe Spadoni on 95.7 The Game.
What's up, Pods? Heal that nose up, buddy. It's all right. It'll only get a little bigger if it's broken. Got a big nose since I was like in second grade. That's when it really started to get pronounced. And yes, if you're streaming us on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, the nose is real, and it's spectacular. So good morning to all you lovely people just getting off work, getting ready for school. Got one more segment here before handing it off to Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky. They got a star-studded cast coming up. Starting at 7:20-ish. I want to say the great Herm Edwards. Don't press send. Is going to be joining them. Former Jets head coach, former Kansas City head coach, former Arizona State football head coach. So we're going to hear from Coach. Hello. Former head coach, Herm Edwards, 7:20, and then former All-Pro secondary, safety, corner, return man, whatever you want to call him, just a jack of all trades and a master of all of them. Patrick Peterson, 8 o'clock. Can't wait to hear from him. And then our very own 95.7 The Game 49ers insider, Jake Hutchinson. Fresh off a trip from Japan, I want to say. Wasn't he in Japan a couple months ago? Jake going to be joining the guys at around 9:20. So a star-studded cast there. And all those guests will be joined courtesy of the River Islands guest line. All right. Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media yesterday. And let's listen to his full presser talking to the media as I play it right here.
For practice today, Matthew Wright, shoulder and back, will not practice. Jake Moody, right ankle, won't practice. Juwan Jennings, hip, won't practice. Malik Collins, knee, won't practice. Leonard Floyd's having a vet day. Jordan Elliott, knee limited. Jordan Mason, shoulder limited. Deebo Samuel, wrist limited. And Mustafa, ankle limited.
The wrist, is that what he was shaking his arm out after the game?
Probably. Yeah, we didn't know during the game, though. Found out the next day.
It was like that appears all back in practice, Kyle. Did you sense some kind of, players react to this?
Yeah, I think everyone was excited for him to be out. We just had walked through today, but Monday was our first day back with them, and we let him break the team down. He was excited. We didn't do much. We just had 1 2-minute drill. He was out of breath from it, so we were messing with him, trying to get him to talk right away. It was more just because he was so excited to be out there and stuff, but it was a good first day, and pumped to see him out there this afternoon.
I feel like his presence, just making his return, kind of uplifted the team. I know they had a little extra time off and rest as well. Yeah,
I think more of the guys are just happy for him. They know he's wanted to be a part of this. It's been a crazy story, him delaying to be a part of it, and he's worked to get here, and I know the guys are just excited for him and ready to support him, help him come along.
After Bosa and Leonard Floyd, your depth, and those guys have potential, after them, but they really haven't done it at the NFL level and aren't proven. How do you feel about that? And is that something you think might need to be addressed, before trade deadline?
I feel good about that. You always want. You'd love to have 4 Pro Bowlers just in there, but I think that's the reality of most teams. I think it's very rare to have a situation that is better than that. It did hurt. We had big plans for E-Tour, so him going on IR hurt, but we hope to get him back later this year. So, we have some possible guys on the horizon coming back too.
Kyle, how much Super Bowl film are you watching versus what they've put on tape this year?
You stick with the 5 games they've done this year, and you go back to our last game with them. So you also go to previous games of us versus them. When coordinators don't change, the scheme doesn't change, you tie in all those games.
How do you characterize going up against a Spagnuolo defense? Has it been about a similar feel to going up against his defenses over the last few games?
I think it's gotten better and better each year. I thought last year was the best defense that we played all year, and I feel that way this year so far. So they got guys who've been playing a long time together. They've been doing his scheme for a while. He's been doing a scheme for so long, but they continue to add to it. They continue to fine-tune it, and I got a lot of respect for him and his scheme.
You guys have had a lot of success game planning for Aaron Donald over the years. I know there are exceptions to this, but usually he has quiet games against you. Why don't you think you've had the same success against Chris Jones? What's the difference there?
There's just different variables they do with their stuff. It's sometimes a little bit harder to eliminate him where he goes and just some of the pressures they do, but he definitely deserves that attention. He's as good as player there is, and we try our hardest to take him out, but he makes that pretty hard.
What are the hallmarks of an Andy Reid scheme or an Andy Reid offense?
I think it features around their quarterback, obviously, puts them in a great position to make a ton of plays, and he has a guy who can make a ton of plays. They always dabble in all screens, RPOs. You always got to be ready for new plays, one that you haven't seen, and always enjoyed watching Andy since he was back in Philly, and he continues to evolve also.
On their defense, they're so man-heavy against you guys in the Super Bowl. You've seen a lot of man this year, maybe more than in recent years. Is that a coincidence, or do you sense maybe teams are kind of trying to follow some sort of a blueprint?
I think some games we have, some we haven't. Last game I didn't see it that way, but they did more in the Super Bowl than they had in the past. I think in the past they were like 20% man, and they went up to 35% in the Super Bowl. And that's about where they are this year. Last year going into that game, they play more press and stuff than anyone in the league all of last year, and they're still doing that this year too. So, when you're in crucial situations, especially the fourth quarter, they blitz more than anyone in the league last year, and that's true this year too. So usually when that's the case, you see man. So it goes with their scheme, and they definitely did a little bit more last year too.
Fiddle kind of mentioned that last week ahead of the Seahawks battle. You said it wasn't a must-win, but it kind of is a must-win. Is the conversation going into this one, given the history between you guys and Kansas City, and then the ability to kind of put the rest of the league on notice with a win, is that the same type of conversation you're having with the guys?
I try to have the same conversation every week. I just word it a little differently. But I never want to say the words must-win until if we don't win, we're eliminated from the playoffs. So that's the only time it's a true must-win. But my words were last week that I'll never say it's a must-win until it's that situation, but it damn sure feels like one. And I think that had to do with just losing 2 tight games in our division, being 0-2 in our division, going against a divisional opponent. I see this game like I see all games. I feel like they're all every game matters huge, but I didn't choose those words this week.
You brought in another kicker, I assume, as insurance for Wright, whether he can go or not. And Carlson's not really historically a deep kickoff guy either. Would you ever consider bringing in a guy, at least for a while, just to kick off and then have a place kicker do the place kicker, or you just don't want to use 2 spots for that?
I'd love to. You just got to see what position you want to go short at. That could always be a possibility. But that does take a toll on the roster big time. If you ever had one injury at the wrong spot, that would be a big regret. But that is an interesting decision, but probably something we won't do.
Numbers say Patrick Mahomes having a down season by his standards. What do you see from him in particular?
I think everyone says down year just because their numbers aren't just crazy. But, Pat's as good as it gets. He's been as good as it gets since the first year that he got to play. All their games, I think, except for one, have come down to the last possession, and he's as good as anyone in that last possession. Their running numbers aren't quite what they were last year. Their red zone isn't real high, so I think that equates to numbers. But Pat is Pat, and he's as good as it gets, and I don't see that changing at all.
Kyle, Brock was the #1 quarterback in the league this year and last year on the play action, but I noticed that the play action percentage this year is down. Is there any reason for that you guys haven't run as many play action passes this year?
No, we try to run what we think looks good on tape, and it kind of just depends on how people are playing us. And sometimes we think it looks really good, sometimes we think it's not so good. So it's not like we don't just do things every week because we do it. I think it's just been just a matter of how the schedule's played out.
How do you feel like your receivers have done against man coverage this season? I
thought they've done some good stuff. I'm sure you guys have analytics on that I want to be well aware of. But I'm always trying to improve in everything. But, I think we've won some and we've lost some, as usual.
You also mentioned that, the Chiefs are specifically a team you guys have not succeeded against recently, and obviously in 2 huge games. I know as a coach, you can't all the time make one opponent bigger than the other. But do you feel that a little bit? Like you've had some fairly large losses against this team?
Yeah, I think everyone understands that we've lost the 2 Super Bowls to them. So, I mean, that can give a little post-traumatic stress when you turn on the tape, but I think that's human nature. But you got to make sure you don't get caught up in that. You know, this game has nothing to do with past games. That was last year. We're playing a really good AFC opponent. We're 500 right now. We want to stay atop of our division and get a win. You think about that stuff going into it, but in terms of what it plays out in a game, it really has no correlation, and you try to make sure that it doesn't.
I'm sure when you lose a game in Super Bowl in overtime, there are plenty of plays you're like, oh crap, if only. But that 4th and 1, you get a defensive stop and the game is over. I don't know. Is that up there as far as plays you're like, man, that hurts?
Not necessarily. 4th and 1, it's 50-50, So, there's other plays that are worse, but we can go through a lot of them. But that's not, that's your opportunity. You got to stop for 1 yard and then it's over. And, you're Super Bowl champ. So it's hard when it comes to that. But I think there was a number of other plays in that game that were just as important.
My expert opinion, a well-designed play. Was there something that could have been done? Was there anything, like, quote-unquote, wrong with the defense there, or do you just kind of tip your cap and say, hey, you got us?
No, it's hard to defend everything. 4th and 1 is one of the tougher spots in football. You want to start out with sneaks. You got to defend the edges. You got to defend the dive. You play tight man coverage. You got to defend every rollout pick play. And then when you call a play like that, you got to do 11 on 11 and defend the quarterback. So you can't defend every play, and they got us in a good situation where they ran their quarterback and we had one guy on them, had a chance to stop it, but it's not an easy one to stop.
How did Carlson do on his kickoffs during his tryout?
I don't go out to his tryout, so good enough to sign him.
Is that a concern, though? These guys coming in, not being able to...
Everything's a concern. Especially when guys are available. If there was zero concerns, I think guys would be somewhere right now. So you look into all of that and you try to make the best option. And that our guy last week did a hell of a job coming in, being 3 for 3. There was a lot of kickoffs we would have gone in to the end zone. We had that with Robbie towards the end of his career. He was automatic kicker, but didn't always get it out there. We've tried it with Mitch, so that's stuff you always want, but it's not guaranteed, especially as the year gets going and it gets colder. That's why we got to get better kickoff coverage as it goes also.
Last one. Of all the one-on-one matchups this game can have, do you get time to appreciate a Fred Warner going against Travis Kelce?
I don't really get time to appreciate it, but it's one that I'm glad that we got Fred Warner, because Kelce is as good as it gets also, and so we got to have one that's as good as it gets to match up, and that's a hell of a competition between those two. Thank you. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, that was Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers, speaking to the media yesterday ahead of Chiefs-Niners Week 7 matchup at Levi Stadium this Sunday. But coming up next, it's the Morning Roast. Bonte Hill, Joe Shasky, they got Herm Edwards, Patrick Peterson, and Jake Hutchinson coming up on 95.7 The Game.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ-FM in HD1 San Francisco, on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Disturbed. Live. Oh, come on, get down with the 25th anniversary of the 5-time platinum album, The Sickness. 2 sets, 1 show, The Sickness in its